Lots of energy. We're excited. And I think we're happy. But I'm not sure. Yeah, you all know that better than I, whether you're happy. Many of us are not happy, or not happy enough. You know, some of us are depressed. Some of us are anxious. Some of us are fearful. You know, that's the human condition. To be expected, particularly in this modern, stressful life era. Okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, kind of going from that place. Now, not all of you will be there. Some of you will be quite happy and okay, you know. But we're going to kind of start from that place, because I think most of us either are or come to that place periodically of fear, anxiety, depression, etc. And how can we kind of work with that? Okay? And this is the important take-home message without beating ourselves up. So I'll say that again. Without beating ourselves up. That's the real important part, I think, the key. Okay? So I'm supposed to tell you guys a few things. Please turn off your cell phones, because we're going to have a kind of quiet hour and 15 minutes, and we're going to do some meditation. And if your phone rings, I guarantee you, you will be embarrassed for a long time. I've actually forgotten in the past to turn off my cell phone. It happened to me once, after I told everybody to turn off their cell phones. So luckily my cell phone isn't working, so I don't have to worry about that. But please turn them off. I guess I have to introduce myself. My name is Barry Kerzin, and I think, you know, we know each other, many of us. And I have this, I'm the founder of this Altruism in Medicine Institute. This is a nonprofit. And okay. So what I plan for today is for the hour and maybe a little less, an hour and 10 minutes, is to start off showing you some slides. I'll talk a little bit, and then I'll shut up. And I want to leave a big chunk of time for us to talk together, okay? That's the richest stuff. But in between those two things, I thought about maybe we'd meditate together. Sound okay? If you don't like meditation, you can walk out, it's okay, don't worry. Or you can sit there, but you don't have to do anything. That's okay too. But best is you try to meditate. So we'll meditate together, okay? And then we'll talk together. Good. So, is this as dark as we get it? Can we turn off the lights? And do I do the slides here? Let's see. Here we go. Okay, good. Can you see that in the back? Okay, great. Normally, we see differences. We divide the world up into us and them, me and him or her. Okay, that's what we do normally. And we take that for granted. We think that is the way the world is. We don't usually think about it. There are many people, particularly more spiritual people, that doubt this. They say this is just a mental construct, something we've created out of our own language, concepts, language, words. And there's nothing in reality that corresponds to this. There may be some profound wisdom in that. Okay? Okay. Try it again from here. Don't. Boom. Okay. The other one means, oh, wonderful. Yeah, this is a little guy that was given to me in Hong Kong, and it's worked a lot recently. I think the battery is now good, yeah, because I have a pointer, but the slide thing changer is not working, so let's try this. Okay, looks like right must be going down. It is, okay. So we get involved with jealousy, okay? I like this slide. Actually, I had another slide that I thought was not appropriate, so I didn't bring it. But I'll tell you what it was. It was two women dressed with kind of a low-cut dress. And one of the women was Sophia Loren, and the other was, I think, Marilyn Monroe.
Jane Mansfield.
Jane Mansfield, thank you. And who is it? Is looking at Jane Mansfield's, her chest, yeah? And you can see envy on her face. It's a great one, but I thought, okay, not appropriate for this. Anyway, okay. Anger, right? Anybody know that one? Anybody not know that one? I asked the other day, and one person was, thank you very much. One person, maybe two? No, one person? No, okay, good. The person that said no the other day, 2 days ago, later came to me and asked what the definition was. He was not sure, but it was lovely. He was very honest, and he thought he just doesn't get angry, which, wonderful, fantastic. Not to yourself either? Not sure about that one. Okay, that's great. Appreciate your honesty. Thank you very much. So we get angry. We may not get red hot all the time like this. We may, but we may not. We may kind of keep that more bottled up, and that war is going on inside rather than expressing it outside. But we all get angry, okay? Arrogance. We're better than him or her or they, okay? Sometimes we fall into this trap. We feel better, okay? We make judgments, and I mentioned this briefly, I think, in a discussion, that we often do this subliminally, if I can say the word, subliminally. We're not aware of it. We make these judgments, and the judgments are usually negative, okay? The judgments can be of ourselves, they can be of others, okay? Putting down, and we're often not aware of this. So it's very important to be happy that we recognize these things: anger, jealousy, pride, judgment, particularly negative judgment. That we recognize these things, and we recognize them early, because once they're full blown, it's not easy to do much with it, other than just say, okay, next time, I'm going to try not to go to this place. Okay. Now we have to be gentle warriors, because if we're doing this kind of stuff, trying to identify our destructive emotions, and we fail, okay? And I guarantee that all of us are going to fail the next time we try to do this, okay? Maybe not everybody, but probably, okay? It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that we've been doing this kind of stuff, the judgment, the envy, the pride, the anger. We've been doing it for, I don't think anybody's less than 20 here. Is there anybody less than 20? Raise your hand. John's less than 20, but okay, he's an outlier. I also feel less than 20, John, actually. My body doesn't say that, but I feel that way. So at least for 20 years, and for some of us maybe 50 or 60 years, we've been doing this stuff, okay? So to overturn it overnight, obviously unrealistic. So you have to persist, you have to keep doing it. Looking inside to identify these things early, okay? And I'll come back to that, how we kind of do that. Okay, I didn't have these slides in, this one and the next one, but this morning I put them back in, just hearing some of the discussions that have been going on in our groups. And I think many of us, if not all of us, are high achievers. We have very high expectations of ourselves. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that's bad, because that's wonderful stuff. It's got us here, okay? But we also pay a toll, okay? So what I like to try to do in my life, and I counsel people also to do, is to reduce just a little bit. Why? Okay, now does this have a pointer? It does. Because this fish is doomed to failure. It's not going to make it. The expectation, the bar is set too high. And what happens when we're in this situation, we feel like a failure and we beat ourselves up. We become guilty. Okay? That doesn't help us. It doesn't help those around us. In fact, usually the opposite. So if we slightly lower our expectations, just a little bit, then we can meet them, okay? And then we can reset our expectations, no problem. a lot easier for us. Very simple stuff, but I think it's very practical and very helpful. It has been for me. So we're shifting our focus away from me. Let's see if I can do this without falling off the dais. I once did a long retreat, one of these 3-year retreats, and there was a teacher. Sorry? Jaw dropping? I'm sorry, I don't know. Anyway, just you do it day by day, so it doesn't feel like 3 years. Yeah, today you're doing your meditation. Next day you're doing your meditation. Today, all of a sudden, it's 3 years. Someone says, "Okay, go." And there was a teacher there who's since died, and he came to one of the groups, and he sat on a chair or on a cushion, I think on a chair, and everybody else was sitting doing their meditation. And he told people, "Okay, go meditate," and I'll do the same, and he did. And an hour went by, 2 hours went by, and all of a sudden he fell off his chair, went backwards, fell off his chair. Everybody ran up to help him, right? And he was older at this time. And he said, "What are you doing? You're supposed to be meditating." He was kind of one of these crazy kind of practitioners, crazy yogis. He was once in there's a place called Chanteloube, which is in southern France, in Dordogne, in the area where we did our retreat. And there was a function, there was a dinner and stuff, and he was invited, and he had wandered in Calcutta for years as a nobody, as a beggar, he's this kind of a guy. So he was brought by his students, and and everybody goes into the main house, and he kind of drops off, as he usually did, and got lost, and went into the barn, where they keep the animals. He sat down on the hay, and he was doing meditation, doing his practice. And then they went and served the meals for everybody, and then they looking for him, and where is he? Where is he? Yeah. People said, I don't know. And they went looking for him. Finally, they found him in the barn, and they said, "Rinpoche, please come in. It's time for dinner." He said, No, bring the dinner here. So he ate alone there, on the straw in the barn. That was the way he was. Anyway, that all was stimulated by me nearly falling off the dais. So shifting our focus away from me. Okay, I got the back here. Good. From I, iPhone. But though we often think we're different, and we make this distinction between us and them, we are the same in one very important way. Okay? This is important. I said that twice. None of us wants to hurt. All of us want to be happy. We all share that. And we often forget this fact. So the more we remember it, like a mantra, you guys know what a mantra is, it's something you just say again and again. You begin to buy into this reality, this sameness, that none of us want to hurt and we all want to be happy. And the more we kind of start to buy into that, we become comfortable with that notion, the more we start to act that way. Okay? And then just because he or she is a member of the human family, or a member of the living family, including animals, okay? Just because of that fact, we will do what we can to help if they're in pain, okay? Now that's a very strong statement, okay? A corollary to that, which I must mention, is we have to take care of ourselves. So we are included in the us here. None of us wants to hurt, including me, including you. And all of us, me and you, okay, want to be happy. So we must include ourselves in this equation. Very, very important. And often we forget that, okay? So I made a very brief comment today that, taking care of ourselves actually takes care of our constituency, okay? because it makes us more whole, gives us more clarity, better decision making, okay, more happy. And all that stuff ripples out, and it affects the people around us. Okay, it's very true. I think you know that. And the opposite is true. You know when you feel bottled up, stuck, everything is just stuck. That ripples out. What happens to people around you? They kind of become stuck, or they walk away. They don't feel comfortable. They don't feel safe. Okay? So we do have a definite impact on those around us by what our intention, motivation, emotions are. Okay? So we are part of this one human family. We tend to forget that. When we say or think or feel family, we often think of mother, father, kids, and maybe we extend it out a generation or laterally, okay, a little bit. But actually, we're all part of this human family, okay? And this is also something very, very important not to forget. And the more we remember that, and I think this group of people is probably really plugged into that, which is incredible. We start acting accordingly. When there's hurt anywhere, it hurts us. Okay, because we're all interconnected in this big family, larger family. His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about this a lot. He talks about this century being a century where, national boundaries will become less important, they're less necessary. We're so globally interconnected, and we're going to think more on a worldwide level, particularly with climate change, ecology, these kind of environmental issues. Okay, and so that we will begin to think more and more actually as if we're members of one human family. Okay. The lights are probably as low as they can go. Can you see this? It's a bunny and a piglet, and the bunny has his or her ear over embracing the piglet. I like that slide. So this kindness, I want to emphasize here, goes to ourself. Often we forget, or we haven't been trained, okay? Often we're too busy, Or as we heard this morning so many times, if I take time out for myself, it's taking away from my constituency. We can't do that, okay? So this actually is adding to the health, mental and physical and spiritual, of our constituency by being kind to ourselves, okay? Now, I'm not saying goofing off. I mean, if you want to goof off, great. But this kindness means, to value ourselves and to recognize that, if we have 10 things to do in a day, I mean, you guys do 10 million, but let's say 10 things to do in a day, and 9 of them go quite well. We feel pleased, we feel satisfied. But one didn't quite go the way we wanted. What do? We tend to focus on that one that didn't go well. And we almost neglect or forget about the other 9. Unrealistic, not being kind. So being kind means to remember, put it in a proper context, okay? 9 things went really well. Now, if 9 things didn't go really well, okay, you still don't beat yourself up as a failure, okay? What you do is you say, okay, how can I learn from these 9 that didn't do so well and try to do it better? Kind of emotionally neutral, no guilt. In the Tibetan language, there's no word for guilt. In Buddhism, there's no concept for guilt. Okay? There is a concept and a word for remorse or regret, but it doesn't have the guilt tone. Okay? It's very practical. Okay? So just knowing these things often helps us. May not be enough, but it helps us on the way to achieve guilt-free life. Okay? Guilt, which many of us grew up with, comes from a different time, a different era. And our parents were doing the best they could, but somehow for them it was the best way to raise a child, to make him or her feel guilty if they're not, reaching excellence. Okay? So for us in this day and age, it's no longer useful. Okay? So we can say thank you to our parents, they were doing the best job they could, but now we don't need it. Okay? So we can let it go. And sometimes just doing that. The crystal ball stuff I talked about 2 days ago? You embody that feeling of guilt in a crystal ball, you hold it and you let go. And it drops on the cement floor and shatters into 1,000 pieces. Okay? So the guilt, it's one way to try to get rid of the guilt. See it as a cloud, imaginary cloud going through the blue sky and then dissipating. Okay? So one thing you've done right away is you've taken the guilt away from here, or here, wherever you feel it embodied, and you've put it out there. So you're less likely to identify it as me. Okay? You've made some distance, some separation between at least your physical body and the imaginary cloud, which is your guilt. Okay? And then as it goes through the sky, it just naturally dissipates. It's gone. You're not suppressing it. You're letting it be freed. Okay? These things take practice. You have to do them again and again. They don't happen the first time. They don't work first time. So we have to be, we're kind of the generation that expects, you push a button and you get instant results. These things are not instant results. You have to be persistent. You have to take time. Okay? So what we're talking about is kind of an inward, what did I say? Turning inward. Turning inward. It's a kind of lifestyle that we tend to be outward oriented, and not only that, but we tend to be future oriented, our expectations, our goals, our plans, or past oriented, worrying, going over, what we did, what we said. Okay? We tend not to be in the present very much. In fact, often we don't hang out in the present at all. It was mentioned today, young kids do that beautifully. They often they're just there in the present moment, particularly very young ones. This was a father who said this about his son or daughter, I don't know. It's true, So to find that place where we can drop into the present moment really is refreshing, okay? Now, we live in very busy, demanding worlds. We can't stay in the present the whole time. I mean, we could, it's our choice. But if we want to do what we're doing, then we can't. Although there is a place where you can. You can hold the present moment and be active, but it's not easy to achieve that. It's a Dzogchen kind of type of meditation where you can be non-referential, so everything is open and available. You can even function in that, but you don't lose the sense of kind of what they say, rochik, one taste. So it's a sense of being in the present. Okay? But for us, probably it's just learning how to sometimes drop into the present, to refresh, to recharge, okay? To be like that little child, wide open, joy, no worry, recharge, okay? A year ago, I think February 3rd, last year, 2014, this was the cover of Time magazine, okay? Mindful Revolution, okay? Revolution, usually you guys work, revolutions are pretty bloody, usually. This is a bloodless revolution, okay? Actually, it is very bloody, but in a very different way, not violent. It's a very bloody way in that it's very warm and heart-driven. The heart's full of blood, okay? But anyway, it's a revolution, okay, according to Time magazine. And what's a revolution? Mindfulness, okay? What's mindfulness? Well, Time magazine says, the science of finding focus in a stressed out, multitasking culture. Resonate with anybody? We all live in that culture, okay? So this is one alternative that's being offered and becoming very popular. Some of you may be involved with it. To sit still, to often follow your breath, which we'll do in a few minutes, and drop into the present moment. Okay? Refresh. Okay? That dropping into the present moment has more potential than just refresh. Okay? It has the potential of wisdom, to look a little deeper who we really are. Okay? And that's something that we often don't do, but can be very valuable. Because who we think we are is another mental creation, words, language, concepts. It's not real. Okay? And this statement crosses many Eastern traditions, not just Buddhism. This is Taoist, this is probably Confucius, this is in many ways Hindu, particularly Jain, or particularly some branches of Hindu tradition. So this is almost a pan-Eastern understanding that who we are is not who we think we are. Okay? Who we think we are is an artificial mental construct. Okay? And you may say, well, so what? Good question. The so what is that if we begin to explore and we begin to actually see that who we are is not who we think we are, all of a sudden life gets so much easier. You know, the elbows that are usually out there, I mean, not actually, but yeah, they're not there. Everything is much softer. We take things much less personally because the person who we thought we were was the one with the elbows and got stuck on so much. When we realize we're not that, we don't get stuck on things. You know, praise and blame kind of equal. We take it equally. We don't get too worked up if someone praises us. We don't get too upset if someone blames us. Okay? Because we realize that the one that's being praised, the one that's being blamed, is not the real me. This can be very, very freeing. So, thank you very much. I've taken about a half an hour, a little less. And what I'd like to do now is meditate. So how many of you guys have ever meditated, even once? Raise your hand. My gosh, not everybody, but most of you. Fantastic. Okay, good. So what we're going to do is it's called shamatha meditation. It's a Sanskrit word. It means focused or concentrated, okay? Sometimes it's called single-pointed. Sometimes it's called calm abiding, okay? That's a literal translation from the Tibetan, shi ne. Shi is peace or calm, tranquility, and ne is to abide, okay? So it's a technical kind of, you know, sometimes you may see the term calm abiding. But mainly it's focused, one-pointed, or concentration meditation. That was my sandwich from lunch speaking to me, saying, hello. Actually, I shouldn't say this, but I had 2 sandwiches for lunch. So I'm expecting a second hello. Okay, so what we'll do, let me describe it first and then we'll do it together, okay? You don't have to do it yet, but we'll sit up with our back straight, we'll keep our eyes open, and we will breathe through our nose, and we'll keep our mouths closed. Now, if you have bad allergies and your nose is plugged, you can't keep your mouth closed, okay? But the idea is to keep your mouth closed, breathe through your nose. And we want you to breathe normally. You know, you don't have to force it. Slow, fast, big, small. Just let it go naturally. Now, it may not always go naturally. I get this question a lot. Don't worry, just leave it. So kind of leave the breath on its own, try not to force anything. Now, I'd like you to have your eyes open, otherwise we're going to fall asleep. After lunch, it's a little bit warm, you guys are tired, so much excitement, and then the next moment we automatically go, right? So to a little bit counter that, we'll keep our eyes open. Okay? We'll keep our heads up. You know, we don't want to get our heads down like this, we do the heads up. And our eyes will be looking down, and we can kind of rest our eyes so they're what I call a soft gaze. So if you're looking down and you see your knees or you see the floor, whatever is kind of right down about a meter or so in front of you, roughly, you don't want to stare at that. You don't want to drill a hole with your eyes. That's what I mean by soft gaze, okay? So if that's not easy to do, don't worry about it, but just see if you can kind of relax your gaze and not really stare at what your eyes are seeing, okay? And then we're going to park, if you will, we're going to, put our mental, our concentration, our mind, okay, at the bottom of the nose. We're just going to focus our mind here at the bottom of the nose. And we're going to sort of be aware of the sensations in that area as the breath goes in and out, okay? Sometimes when you get really relaxed, maybe you're asleep, I don't know, but really relaxed, you don't feel so much the breath. That's okay. Just keep your focus of attention there. Okay? Now, very likely we will get distracted. Okay? the mind will start thinking about something. What did I say? Oh, I could have said it better. Or I have an activity coming up. What am I going to do for da-da-da-da-da? Or follow some story. Or I feel a sensation in my body. My hip is a little sore. My back is kind of not so feeling so well or something. Okay? Any of that stuff is called distraction. So when you begin to do that, become distracted, your job is to immediately come back to the breath. So my job is to come back to the mic. There we go. So that's basically what we do. And you may get distracted a lot, many times. It's okay. It's really part of the way our minds are working, okay? Because we jump around a lot. And so it's unrealistic to expect that'll change when we sit for 10 minutes in meditation. It's going to be the same, probably. So no problem, but just recognize when you're distracted and bring it back to the breath. Okay? That's the job. Now, anybody unclear about what exactly we're going to do? We'll take other questions later, but about the mechanics or the technique. If you're unsure, please raise your hand. Everybody reasonably okay? Great. So I think what I'll do is I'll just sit down here in a chair and I'll meditate with you. And we'll go for about 10 minutes if that's okay. If I hear people mentally screaming before 10 minutes, we'll stop early. Okay, don't worry. I'm not I don't have the whip. I'm not a sadomasochist or something. That's not my style. Okay? Please meditate. Please stop your meditation. So, let's talk. Maybe you have some comments. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe you have some feedback. Maybe you have a talking lunch. Actually, the second came as I sat down there. Came and said hello from the second sandwich. So please.
I would say this is actually the first proper meditation I've ever done, but I found a lot of random thoughts coming in, and it's hard to get rid of them. As in, I know you just accept them and stuff, but they do keep on coming back.
Yes, they do, and our job is try not to engage.
And how do you disengage?
You go back to your breath. That's the method for this meditation. Excellent. Congratulations. Sometimes our mind goes like monkey mind, jumping around here and there, which we often do in our daily lives. And sometimes we get tired and we just find ourselves starting to fade. Sometimes we alternate. A few little techniques. It's hot in this room, so when you're in an environment that's hot, try to cool down your body. So if you have a sweater or jacket, take it off. You can open a window, turn on AC, whatever. Cool your environment if it's too hot, making you too sleepy. If, on the other hand, it's too cold, and you're finding that it's just, you're uncomfortably cold and your mind is jumping around, then warm up the environment a little bit, okay? Same thing with light. If your mind is jumping around too much, then lower the lights, okay? And if you're too sleepy, make it brighter, okay? And if this happens day in, day out, because all of you now are going to do regular 10-minute meditations every morning, please, then change your food habits just a little bit. If your mind is always jumping around, then eat a little bit more and a little bit heavier foods. Not much, just a little bit. And vice versa. if you tend to be really sleepy when you do, all the time when you do your meditation, try to reduce a little bit your food and reduce a little bit the fatty, heavy foods. Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Please.
Hi. So I have a couple of questions, but I'll ask whatever comes to mind first. So I've been practicing meditation on and off for about 10 years, and I had heard about the benefits to reduce stress, anxiety, to bring awareness to the present moment. However, something I hadn't heard, which you mentioned today, was about self-knowledge and getting us closer to who we are rather than who we think we are. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that and how that actually happens through meditation.
Good. Thank you. There are other benefits. There are health benefits, reducing blood pressure, being protective against heart disease, being protective against certain immunological related diseases, because meditation does seem to reduce the power and strength of the immune system, at least when it's overactive. It brings it back in sort of a normal range. But in terms of self-knowledge or sort of wisdom, the more we spend time in the present, the less conceptual we are, at least during those times. And as we get a regular meditation practice going day by day for months or years, then we tend to be less, there tend to be less words and concepts running through our mind at any given time. Okay? So the background is kind of clear, clean. Okay? And when we do that, we naturally have more clarity. We can see things clearer, okay, just naturally. There's less clutter, blocking, okay? And when we can see things clearer, we can begin to ask the question, who am I? And sit with that. You don't have to go through a big discourse in your mind. Just kind of, you know that you're asking the question, who am I? And you're just kind of sitting with that while you meditate, okay? So your mind is, in this case, still on the breath, but you're just kind of sitting with that question you asked before you started meditating. Okay? And then slowly what begins to happen is you start to see yourself differently. Okay? You start to see yourself more in that present non-conceptual moment. And when you do that, you begin to get a different flavor of who you are. Okay? So that happens out of this kind of meditation. There's another kind of meditation we call analytic meditation, and that's active thought. And there we have to learn some of the techniques to investigate, who am I? In a very simple way, which probably won't make sense to anybody or very few people, is, am I the same as my aggregates or my body and mind? Okay? Because that's, when I say Barry, I'm Barry, okay? Or I'm called Barry. Actually, I'm called Barry. I am not Barry. You get the difference? Barry's a name. And the name is placed on this body and this mind. Okay? So the question we ask is Barry the same as this body and this mind? Or is Barry different from this body and this mind? Okay? And we ask that question again and again and again and again. And pretty soon, after doing this for months or years, we kind of are a little bit perplexed. We can't quite find this Barry. And then we've gone to a deeper notch in our investigation, okay? And we begin to experientially know that we are neither same or different, okay, from the body and the mind. And if we're not the same and we're not different, it means there is no such Barry, because there's no third possibility. Now, you can do this intellectually, and that's lovely, but it doesn't have an impact. It has to be done experientially to have an impact. And that takes a long time. You have to be patient. But that's another way that this kind of meditation can lead to that wisdom of self-knowledge, which we call in Buddhism, no self. It means no self in terms of the self that we artificially create, who we think we are. That one, that ego, doesn't exist. Hence the name in Buddhism, no self. Doesn't mean we don't exist at all, because we do. We're here, we've meditated together, we're talking and listening together, so we know that, we're here. But the one that's here is not the one we think it is. That's the point. And that's the no-self concept, the wisdom aspect of Buddhism. I could go on and on and on for days and weeks and months. It's a wonderful question, but maybe we'll move around a little bit. Thanks. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
First of all, thank you. I'm wondering on your perspective on, I guess, what I would call nature versus nurture, with regards to the, judgment, arrogance, and, some people are just, glass half full, and some people aren't, and some people see the good side, and, optimist, pessimist, or, two kids, same parents, very different. I'm just, and how that all plays from your perspective.
Yeah, as you know, I have a medical science background. I'm a doctor. I don't know. It's really a good question. It seems like the pendulum is swinging more towards nature now, with all this, when we find these finer genetic distinctions that we're kind of going back to say everything is genetic. I suspect the pendulum will, at some point change again, because even though we find more and more, genetic associations with different mental states, diseases in the body, all that stuff, still it doesn't answer the question, because what's important is not just the genes, but it's the activity of the genes. Okay, we call that epigenetics. And it means is turning on, turning off in the context of genes, okay? And so previously we thought that the microenvironment, around the DNA, around the genes, things like pH, temperature, pressure, that those things determined turning a gene on, having it make or express protein, and also turning a gene off, so it stops the production of protein, okay? We thought that those things were determined by the local environment, the physical, chemical, stuff, the pH, the temperature, the pressure, that kind of stuff. But now there's some new research, it's very exciting, showing that meditation affects epigenetics. It affects, not only when a gene is turned on to make protein, okay, or turned off to stop making protein, but it also seems to have an effect on which genes and therefore which proteins are being made. Yeah? And it may be that emotional states also have an effect, we don't know. But meditation does. There's more research that's required to really confirm that. It's new stuff. So if that's true, which I think it probably will be, there's more of a nurture part, you see. It's not just the genetic structure, but it's the function. And that function seems to be very much dependent on emotions, on meditation, positive mental states creating healthy proteins, and vice versa. I'm sure that's not the whole picture, but that's one piece, probably. Wonderful question, thank you. And I'm sure if we talked about this again maybe next year, we'd probably come up with different sort of ways to look at it. Always evolving. Yes, please.
Hi, meditation has been proven to be more and more important for just the way we function. I guess my question is around how we help instill that or protect it within young people, because children are very much in that present moment. So how do we both help them retain that, but also help the people that surround them, whether that be teachers, parents, other people in the vicinity who maybe aren't in the present, to actually help them maintain that within our life?
Yeah, marvelous, because that's really our future, isn't it? Yeah. So those of us that are around little kids, to try to, allow them and to, kind of foster them to be in the present moment, that it's something very rich and worthwhile. Those that, other people that we know that are around our kids or others, also try to, engage them with this conversation, not pushing anything on anybody, but just, enlightening, opening if they're open to this stuff. And thirdly, on a probably bigger level, as some of you know, may be involved with, there are many groups now around the world that are developing curriculum, starting from kindergarten all the way up. I'm involved very preliminarily with something at a university level, but there are many big groups working to bring this into the education of our children. To be mindful, this non-violent conflict resolution stuff. They don't have to turn to a fist or bad words. That there are ways to maybe learn to negotiate. into teaching that kind of behavior. More kindness, and more concern for others. These kind of things. More patience in terms when they're maybe a little bit older, rather than getting angry. So maybe young too. I don't know. Maybe young too.
I guess second part to that is one of the things that we've looked at is about how we help teachers to do that too, because they teaching is there's so much pressure on teachers, and how do you help them to be present? And I guess it's probably the same thing with doctors. And how do you help intervene at that level? Because actually the young people are relatively easy to connect. It's the influence.
Yeah. Try to teach them. I mean, I work with a lot with doctors, medical students, and nursing students, and dental students, etc. Just try to introduce them, teach them, do a little meditation with them. Tell them you got to meditate every day, and maybe 10% of them will do it. And but it's a start. I think we just need to educate and be out there and do as much as we can. Yeah, I think it's good stuff. And if this stuff really works, then it'll be self-perpetuating, right? I mean, it's probably not going to work on everybody. Some people will give up early, but if we stick to it, it works. This stuff is tried and true. It helps us. And so those people that find a benefit, it's like endorphins in running. I know some of you guys in here are big runners, and when you run, you get this high. The endorphins kick in. That's what they say anyway. These morphine-like drugs, kind of kick in, and you feel happy, you feel good. And if you miss a day running, you feel lousy, It's like you had almost you went into the DTs or something, you started withdrawal stuff. So, it's similar, I mean, I don't know if there's actually endorphins when we meditate, but when you start to meditate and make a regular habit out of it, you feel well. Maybe not during your meditation session. You might, but you might not. But it kind of sets the tone for the day, which is very lovely. And so then it becomes a little bit self-perpetuating. You experience the benefits, and you just want to continue that. You experience the emotional benefits, that maybe spiritual benefits if you're a spiritual person, and often the health benefits also, Yes, please.
Thank you. I enjoyed the iPhone picture when you were talking about the II, and just curious your thoughts on technology and how it's affecting our ability to be present, and advice. Really, I feel like we are all just quite wired these days, and how you personally manage that. You obviously broke your phone, so maybe that's a way of going about it.
Right. I do have a phone, but I'm not stuck to it. I don't do emails on the phone. When I'm out walking, I don't use a phone unless someone calls. I like to make eye contact with people, and I think that's a lot healthier. There's so many people, I'm not sure about in this culture with these folks here. I haven't seen it that much, but some places I am, in Japan, in Hong Kong, in a lot of places in the world. I mean, you go out in public where it's kind of busy and everybody's like this. It's incredible. I mean, how can they walk? So there must be some awareness of, people in front of them or something, yeah? Because I don't see them looking up. They're just like this. It's incredible. So it robs us. It robs us of being in the present moment. It robs us of that joy that's potentially there. Of course, we're busy and we have to do those things, but rather than have it control us, it's much healthier for us to control that behavior. So just knowing that sometimes is half the battle. Obviously, it takes effort. You got to do something about it too, but just knowing that is sometimes half the battle. And it's part of this piece of taking care of ourselves that we were talking about a lot this morning, with Stefan, of taking care of ourselves. Very important. And that taking care of ourselves then goes out and affects those around us. So it's taking care of both, actually, the others and ourselves both. Yes, please. Yes, please.
I wanted to talk about regarding the first question that was asked about the distraction factor.
Yes.
Have you found it effective to use like the prana breaths for the Ferris wheel? That was one thing that had helped me a lot initially. The technique of using the breath and the whole technique of using, I think, the Ferris wheel technique. Have you found that effective?
Definitely yes. And we don't quite have enough time, but if we did, I would have taught you something called 9-round breathing, which is pranayama, which is where we kind of basically breathe in through one nostril and then out the other, and do that 3 times, and then we reverse it 3 times, and 3 times in both and out both. And it just automatically goes, it settles you. It's amazing. So yes, I have found that effective. And those of you that know any techniques to use the breath to settle, they're marvelous. As practices in and of themselves, or as something to do before if you're planning to sit, to quiet your mind. They're marvelous. I'll do one for you, and you may get confused, but that's okay. It doesn't matter if it's exactly, 9, or if it's exactly alternating. Doesn't matter. But I'll do it for you. You just get a flavor. So you do this again with your mouth closed, and you're breathing through your nose. And rather than just a natural breath, you're going to try a long, slow breath. Okay? You're not going to kill yourself. You don't want to end up going, gotta get air. Not that, okay? But just a nice, slow, gentle, long breath. And then you change, okay? So I will make noise through my nostril so you can kind of get a flavor of what I'm doing. When you do this, you don't make noise through your nostril, okay? But I'll just do it just for demonstration purposes. So you sit kind of up straight. You can keep your eyes open or closed. And you just do this. You start with your right index finger blocking the left nostril. You cross over. Okay. Well, let's do it together, okay? And so what I will say, I'll give 2 instructions. Either it'll be in or out, meaning the breath is in or out. And then the second instruction will be change. If I say change, you go to the other side of the nose. If I don't say change, don't change. Now, everybody will change when they want. I know, it always happens. Anyway, those are the instructions, so try your best. Okay? So right index finger blocking your left nostril. Please close your mouth. Breathe in. Change. Breathe out. Slowly. In. Change. Breathe out. 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 Hands in your lap. Breathe in. Out. In. And out. In. Out. That's it. I don't count because I find that a big distraction. So if you end up doing 11 or 7 or 9, doesn't matter. Okay. Anybody feel a little bit calmed down by that? Yeah, it's powerful. It works right away. You can use it out in the field too, yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you. Very personal question about serenity.
Yes,
One of my dearest friends was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
yes.
What can I tell him, and how can I cope with what I need to do to help him?
Yeah, be loving and compassionate. Be a, what we call a non-judgmental listener. You can just be around him and be silent. You don't have to speak. Of course, if you want to or he wants to, of course, talk, but you don't have to. If he's at all interested in meditation, you can teach him what we did today, the first meditation, where with Parkinson's he can do it. The other one, he may not be as easy to have that hand-eye coordination with the fingers. I think compassion and love go a long, long way. Yeah? Support him that way. You can tell him you love him. If you do, you can tell him you love him at appropriate times, and that you're there to, anything he needs, he can contact you. Either he can call, or if he's not able, someone else he can ask, And so make yourself available. I think those are kind of simple but profound, powerful truths that help the other person and also help you in terms of a friend who's going through a very difficult time in their life. Thank you. Yes, please. Yes.
Hi, thank you. It's a question around sort of life holistically from sort of your own perspective, like one's own perspective, in that I suspect lots of people here, you have full-on busy jobs, busy lives, and then also this sort of knowledge that that you want to have this sort of a serenity or a stillness, and how you combine those together without thinking it's the external world making it busy and hectic. You know that that's many of the things that you want within your life, and for then the meditation and your practice to become not another expectation. And so I was just wondering, any advice around holistically having all of those things in your life that that you want, but doing it in a way that actually isn't counter, that you don't have a counter sort of effect as a result, and how you create that.
Lovely, thank you. I think most importantly is you have to have real commitment, internal commitment. And commitment comes when you see a value. So, try to, convince yourself that this is worthwhile stuff through reading, talking to others, whatever, or even maybe your own experience. And then once you have some stronger, conviction or commitment that this is good stuff, then it'll be easier to carve out the time to, try to relax the expectation that this is not like other stuff in our life where we have expectations and goals and targets and have to scale it, all that stuff. It's very different. Sometimes people ask me about, meditation session. They say, the last few days my meditation session has been terrible. I said, what do you mean? They said, my mind has been jumping all over the place. I can't meditate. And I look at them and I say, congratulations. They look at me puzzled. And I say, a lot of stuff happens when we make the intention and the effort, have the intention and make the effort to meditate. There's a lot of stuff that gets cleared out. There's a lot of so-called purification of stuff that happens. So we never really know what's really going on deeper in the mind. And very likely, if we're making a sincere effort to meditate and it's going nuts, our mind is going nuts, it very well may be that we're doing some kind of purification, cleaning some stuff out. So therefore, that's one way to look at this, to then come to the conclusion that it's foolish to have certain, grades given to our meditation experience. Oh, that was an A. Oh, that was a fail. Or that was a C+. Or, it's foolish because we don't know. So that's first thing, to suspend or try to let go and keep working on it. If you have that commitment that this is healthy, good stuff for you, then you'll work at it and you won't give up. To suspend or let go of those expectations of a meditation session. To celebrate these things, I think, is important. Not becoming, holier than thou, I don't mean that, but to celebrate, to feel really happy that we have the opportunity to spend 10 minutes meditating in the morning, or whatever we're doing that's real positive kind of stuff that also supports us, doesn't just automatically drain us. Okay, to celebrate those things, to see them as kind of almost milestones, if you will, maybe. I think that's also important, because that helps to differentiate it from our quote-unquote normal life, to make it something special and different. And then we can kind of preserve it as something kind of precious, and that, we can try to keep less of the, other 23-hour and 50-minute pollution from entering, yeah.
Just an additional question on that.
Sure,
do you think it's possible to integrate those at all? So
yes.
that then it's not so sort of good and this is already busy and sort of terrible, and how you bring some of what you get from the meditation into just everyday life.
Yeah, it'll happen naturally. The more you meditate, the more it kind of flows over. So you have a meditation session for 10 minutes, and maybe you've been doing this for a year, a couple of years, and you're going 15, 20, a half an hour, whatever. And then when you finish your meditation session, you make a conscious effort not to jump. Yeah? So you've allowed yourself an extra few minutes to finish cleaning up and clothing and doing all that stuff, having your breakfast, whatever you do. And then you walk out in a little bit, rather than in a panic running, slightly slower. You budget the time that way, an extra few minutes, okay, for your travel. And then that stuff starts carrying over into your day. And then you may get real busy and caught up and you lose it, but you can come back to it, you can remember it. Yeah, maybe with this breathing or just even thinking about it. And then you just settle, take a moment to be, not in a meeting or whatever, and just kind of settle, allow yourself to settle, and that'll come back. And so more of that will begin to happen as you begin to make this part of your life, this meditation practice. And that'll happen naturally. You won't have to do anything. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for the session. I was wondering what your advice would be to learn more about the techniques and about meditation. Are there any books, any websites someone can turn to learn more about the different techniques?
Good, thank you. DalaiLama.com is a wonderful resource. It has all kinds of stuff, and I would recommend visiting that site. DalaiLama.com, DalaiLama.com. That's got a lot of good stuff. Come to my Facebook. I hate to promote this, but some people say it's a good site. It's an educational site for secular education. So I deal a lot about jealousy and pride and low self-esteem and anger and that kind of stuff. Sometimes meditation. It's just my name, Barry Kerzin, Facebook site. For those of you that want to go deeper in the wisdom side, who I am, okay, there's a marvelous book. It won't be so easy, but I recommend just reading it again and again and again. It's a short book, about 120 pages, I think. And it's called something like Knowing Who You Really Are, by the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I think it's something like Knowing Who You Really Are. It's a marvelous little book. I have a wonderful book in Japanese. Anybody speak Japanese? And I have another one in English coming out soon, but it's going to be pretty technical. Nagarjuna's Wisdom. It's about this emptiness stuff, but it assumes you have a background. You don't have to, but it's going to be not an easy kind of book to read, but it should be out this year. Other stuff, the Dalai Lama has many, many books that are written by other people, usually from his written word. There are a couple that he actually wrote with the help of other people. One is called Universe in a Single Atom. It's a little bit more about the interface between modern science and Buddhist philosophy. There's another one which is more the ethics side, you know, kind of the ethics, morality, which is called Ethics of a New Millennium. Both of these are by the Dalai Lama. I mean, you can look online and, you know, just go to Amazon or somewhere and just Dalai Lama and you'll see tons of books. And there's one, the Harvard Lectures by the Dalai Lama, when he first came to America in 1979 and then second time 1981. And those were collected and edited by Jeffrey Hopkins, Professor Emeritus from University of Virginia, probably the best interpreter from Tibetan into English, a great practitioner himself, Jeffrey Hopkins. Again, this is by the Dalai Lama, edited and translated by Jeffrey Hopkins, the Harvard Lectures. Those are a few good books. I think they're authentic, they're correct. Some of them are a bit tough, but that's okay. You guys don't, that doesn't flinch you guys. You like tough stuff, so it's good for you. Yeah. Please.
Hi, this is my second question. So it's more about my personal practice. I was taught to meditate with my eyes closed, and I did that for a very long time, and only recently somebody talked to me about meditating with my eyes open. And I've tried it, and I find it extremely difficult. And I think it's because I've become quite comfortable in my inner world with my eyes closed when I meditate.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if I should challenge myself to meditate with my eyes open.
Yeah.
Because there's something there maybe to be uncovered, or not.
Yeah, your choice. But you know, His Holiness Dalai Lama advises us to meditate with the eyes open. And the reason is we get more clarity. Maybe not now, but later we'll get more clarity, mental clarity. So when we meditate with the eyes open, there's a tendency to be a little bit more on the, you know, the dull side when the eyes are closed. So that's the reason. But it's not a huge difference. I mean, you won't be wrong either way. Yeah. Maybe one last question, and then I think our time is about up. Then I think our time is up. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you. Thank you.